Are we good? Okay. Hi, everyone. A beautiful weekend, a beautiful Saturday to each and every one of you. We're now on season 2 of the Philippines HR Group virtual learning session. And as I mentioned, this is the last class for this season. This is class 4, wherein we have a very special guest who will be discussing about the best practices in candidate care post-pandemic. Okay, but before we start our discussion for today, I'm seeing a lot of people joining. Let's just give a few more minutes so that more people can join our class, since this is the last class of session 2 of season 2 of our virtual training class. Currently, we are now at 46, and I'm sure by 6 o'clock there will be more and more participants who will be joining us in this session. We're also still waiting for one of our co-hosts, Ms. Michelle Morales. Michelle Morales will be joining TJ and Neil as co-hosts once we start this virtual training session.
I can see Mitch already. Hi, Mitch.
Hello.
Okay, hi Michelle. So let's just give one more minute. Again, everyone, a beautiful Saturday. It's a Saturday evening, and I know that some parts of the metro is experiencing some heavy rains, but it's good that you're taking time right now to attend our free learning sessions, our webinar, to to add value in terms of your training and development, your own personal training and development. We have a very good topic for today, which will be about the best practices in candidate care post-pandemic. Okay, so it's already 6 o'clock. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Darwin Rivers. I'm the founder and president of the Philippines HR Group, and we are the largest online community for HR professionals and HR aligned professionals in the Philippines. Currently, we are 213,000 members on our growing online community in Facebook, and we also have a growing community in LinkedIn. Now, as I mentioned, this is season 2 of the Philippines HR Group virtual training session, and we're on our last class, which is class 4. But before that, let me just introduce to you the host and co-host for this session. Um, our our main host is Mr. Neil Lumakad, who's the head of talent management and engagement of SGS Philippines. We also have Michelle Morales of Iuno Philippines, who's the HR manager there, and the HR manager for JRB Enterprises, Mr. TJ Pestaño. Just a quick note, Neil and TJ is part of the board member of the Philippines HR Group. Neil is the Vice President External, and TJ is part of the board, while Michelle Morales is our VP External, and she came from our core volunteers team. So without further ado, I will give the floor to the host of this program for today, Mr. Neil Lumakad. You can start.
Thank you very much, Darwin. Good evening. It's already 6:01, so technically it's already evening. Good evening to everyone. It's a good Saturday night. I would like to say hi, of course, to my co-hosts, TJ Pestaño. Hi, how are you doing? And of course, Michelle Morales. Hi, Mitch. It's been a while. Yes,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Hi, Sir Neil. Yeah, it's been a while. So far so good. Like in the office, we've started working from home, and we'll still be continuing with the work from home arrangement despite the transition to GCQ. So everything is fine for both personal and professional lives.
Glad to hear that. And yes, that's the similar. That's the same case actually in our company. Even after, let's say, when we are already in a GCQ, you would still continue to work from home, and I think it would be on a prolonged basis. So even if it would be lifted eventually, we hope it would be very soon. But I think considering that we have been very productive even though we're working from home, most of us, I must say. So the management really thought of, having that kind of arrangement even after everything is, let's say, all the community quarantine or the community quarantine is lifted. All right, so it's good to hear that you are doing just fine personally and in terms of how you're doing in your company. How about TJ? TJ, how are you?
All
I know
good,
you've
all
been
good.
very active in community service, and I must commend that, brother.
Yep.
How many families have you extended assistance to so far?
I actually lost count. What happened was when the pandemic started. Thankfully, the owners, my bosses, the owners of the company are very generous, so we were able to produce around 3,600 care. We call it care packs. So one care pack can feed the family for at least 5 days. So I'm the HR person from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, and I'm a social worker from 1 p.m. until we distribute everything. It's been tiring, but I feel really blessed to be part of the organization, and then doing our part in not just in the online community and Facebook, but actually doing our part in helping our countrymen when it comes to these challenging times. It's tiring, but it's very fulfilling. All is good.
And it's really good to know that if you're in a company with a generous heart and a compassionate heart, it's really a fulfilling job. No, even if you said it's tiring at times, but at the end of the day, realizing that you're able to extend assistance to a lot of people, a lot of families, then you just tend to forget
Yep,
the
yep,
physical,
yep.
the struggle and the hardship at that. So
I agree. And they would send me
yeah, very
pictures of
good.
their kids with the care packs, and then even the parents would send pictures, and then they would show us, sir, salamat, we have food for 1 week, etc. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah, so really fulfilling. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that, and I hope the other companies would follow suit. I know a lot of companies are into CSR right now. Aside from helping your own employees, I'm sure you're also doing that. Your company is also doing that. At least we're able also to extend our hand to those outside of the offices. Recently, if I may just share with everyone, um, our employees actually organized an event to assist or to provide assistance, rather to provide support to our service personnel who of course were not able to work during the time of the community quarantine. So they came up with a show, and then they donated funds. No, they donated some amount, and then the collected amount will be shared equally to those who have been affected. So we're talking about the housekeeping personnel, security personnel. So and I was able to take part of that program. So it's really compassion and the heart, no, really is very seen and very evident at this time. So it's very Filipino, the bayanihan as we say. So nandun talaga, no, the compassionate heart and the generous spirit that each of us Filipinos have. So all right. So thank you very much for sharing, no? So what you have been up to, and siguro tanong ko na sa inyo dalawa, are you guys ready for GCQ come next week, come Monday? Are you guys ready for GCQ?
I'm not
Others are
ready for
saying
the traffic. I don't want it, but I actually bought a bike so I can. By next week, I'll just ride my bike instead of driving my car to work.
right. So anyway, I hope I know everyone, especially in HR now, are busy preparing for next week because we have to follow a lot of
Yep.
protocols as such. No. Anyway, so I hope we have more time to talk about, because it's been a while. We haven't seen each other for a while. But of course, tonight would be something more meaningful and exciting again. Yes, we are on our second season for the virtual classes of PHRG, and we're down to the last session for this season. We're just not sure if we're gonna have a third season for this, but it has been 3 days of relevant and really meaningful learning experience for everyone. So I have the pleasure of hosting and co-hosting, of course, with Mitch and TJ tonight's session. And this is another exciting and very relevant and meaningful session that we're going to have. Anyway, I would just want to have some give a few reminders to our audience. Your microphone is automatically on mute. But if you have, that is actually to better manage the flow of information. But I think you may raise your hand if you have any concern, or you may utilize our chat box. I am seeing a lot of messages now here on the chat box. You may use that for any shout outs, all right, or for any concerns that you may have. And we would like to encourage you to use the Q&A tab for your questions. There's a Q&A tab below, or you can see that at the bottom of your screens. So please utilize that for your questions, and you could type in your questions during the presentation of our speaker. Right. And of course, if you get disconnected, you can just jump in at any time. Jump in again at any time. So I'm really excited for tonight. So I would like to take the pleasure of introducing to everyone our resource speaker. Right now, we have about 70, close to 70 participants. So again, I'd like to take the pleasure of introducing to you our resource speaker for tonight. Our speaker for tonight has 20 years of solid end-to-end experience in talent acquisition and human resources. She takes credit in building recruiting teams of startup multinational and well-established companies. As a Six Sigma Green Belter, she had the advantage of leading transformational projects in talent acquisition, setting up processes and rolling out critical talent strategies with strong business controls to ensure alignment with business goals. In the last 15 years, she has been in the business outsourcing, shared services industry, leading teams with high volume requirements and corporate niche roles. She had managed global teams and mentored a lot of TA specialists who have been inspired with her leadership, passion for excellence, and positive attitude. A recipient of several leadership awards, and recently she led her Asian team, to being one of the finalists of the prestigious Asia Recruitment Awards for 2020. That honors the region's most innovative and outstanding talent acquisition teams. So PHRG community, let's welcome Vice President, Recruitment and Sourcing of Shearwater Health, Jen Borlaza. Good evening, Ms. Jen. How are you?
Thank you, Neil, for that wonderful introduction. Welcome, everyone. Hello. Happy Saturday to everyone.
Happy Saturday, Jen. Thank you for tonight's session, and we're really excited to hear from you and learn a lot from you. But before I actually give you the floor, in terms of expectations, we would just want to hear just a glimpse of what we're going to learn from you today. So, Michelle, I believe you know what is going to happen and what are we to expect, or what are we to learn from tonight's session. Michelle?
Thank you so much, Sir Neil. So today's topic is very timely and interesting for all of us, for all of the HR professionals out there. So top talents would be uncomfortable joining a new organization because of the uncertainties brought about by this pandemic. More than ever, positive candidate experience will hugely impact HR team's ability to hire candidates. That's very true. And For today's learning session, our special guest will be discussing how we can firstly keep candidates engaged all throughout the hiring process. Secondly, make the candidates feel comfortable moving to your organization. Thirdly, draft an appropriate package considering market volatility. And finally, identify a start date considering lockdown and deliver effective onboarding process despite travel restrictions. And yeah, without any further ado, I'm now passing the floor to our guest speaker, Miss Janina Borlaza.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. Well, again, thank you so much also to the Philippine HR community and Job Street for having me as part of your webinar session. So I'm privileged and honored that you are spending an hour with me on a weekday or weekend rather, on a Saturday night, right? And hopefully I'll be able to share with you some of the insights. This topic is actually close to my heart because I was a candidate myself. I just joined Shearwater, if you are not aware, early May. So some of the insights that I'll be sharing with you would be part of what I've experienced and best practices along the way. So hopefully we will learn together, and that would be something that you can take away as you move towards the new normal on Monday, right? So I'm privileged that I will be ushering you into the new normal by Monday, right? So let me just, every time I start my session, I would want to start with something that's funny. So let me just pull up my slide here. And please bear with me. All right, so, okay, it's not moving. All right, so I've captured some interesting memes in social media. I'm sure some of you may have seen this, but anyway, I'm sharing it again. This might probably be the face of your candidates when you share as a recruiter that you are changing the process the nth time after they've completed several layers of recruitment steps. So you have to remember Mr. Bean's face. And probably for the recruiters, you may relate to this one. Maybe Adele was a recruiter in her former life, as she is singing our song. Anyway, so going back to our topic, candidate care in today's crisis. So just recently or early part of the pandemic, the Secretary General of United Nations have mentioned that this is more of a human crisis more than ever. There have been 203 countries that have been affected by the pandemic. A lot of economies have collapsed, right? And as per Dole, I would like to read this. Almost 2.6 million employees have been displaced or lost their jobs. And it is expected to increase to up to 5 million Filipinos on top of the unemployed OFWs who just flown back recently into the country. So I'm sure that as HR practitioners, this has got you thinking that what would the world look like after this pandemic? How would we be able to manage the recruitment process in the new normal? Will there be a recruitment toolkit that we'll be able to utilize? Because at the front and center of our recruitment process would be the candidate, right? How would we be enabling our processes, our systems in making sure that they're treated effectively, right? And in a way that we will be able to really progress them in each step of the process with considerations and with care from recruitment until we onboard the candidates. So what's our current state? So in early April, Exakeo, a company, had created a white paper, and it's called Crisis 2020. what they've done is they've made a survey to all the employees, and this is based in the US, and they've asked a couple of questions, and I've actually snipped some of the results that they've had. So they've asked the employees the likelihood that my job will be eliminated during this pandemic. So 66% have said, no, I'm cool. I'll be able to still maintain this job. There's low likelihood that my job will be eliminated. 28% said it's 50-50. I'm not so sure whether I'll be able to still stay in the organization in next 2 or 3 months. And then 6% said hi. There's high likelihood that my job will be eliminated. The next piece of the survey that they've created is that they've asked if their organization had made a formal statement on the layoffs or furloughs due to COVID-19. So 35% said yes, there had been a formal announcement with regards to the layoffs that will happen in my organization. 32% have said no, but we are planning to announce to the to our community or to our employees that there would be some layoffs and furloughs. And then 33% have said no, and we are not planning to announce these layoffs. So why am I sharing this to you? This is very important, dear HR practitioners, because these are the types of people that we will come across in the recruitment process. The people that you'll be talking to might be the leaders who are actually in this space, who are thinking about their statement, their official comms as to how they would share that to their employees to say that, okay, there would be several layoffs or furloughs that we need to do. They may probably be the 6% that have lost their jobs already in the past few months. Or they may be the 28%, those employees that are still well connected in their organization, but unsure if they would need to move to another organization at this time when everything is volatile and unstable. This situation has actually changed the market landscape, the candidate behavior, and we should always think about that in terms of the candidate care process. So I hope you're seeing this slide, or I need to move this. Neil, Michelle, can you please, oh, you're seeing it. All right, okay. So these are actually 9 critical considerations that I wanted to share with you. And I wouldn't stop from hiring. I also included onboarding because that's a critical piece in the new hire process when your candidate has been converted to a new hire in the organization. If you notice, these might be some typical things that we actually do pre-COVID, right? But as we deep dive, you would see that there will be iterations, and hopefully that's something that will be a learning point for you that you can take away after this session. So let's start with messaging comms to candidates, right? So this is actually thinking about the steps in the candidate journey and how are you aligning your message to the company's brand and values, right? I'm sure that during this time and maybe until next week, there will be some virtual recruiting that will still happen. Maybe some of you will still not be in the office, right? So, but how are you managing the perceptions and setting expectations with the candidates and how you are progressing them now in this difficult situation? So what I would want to challenge everyone and make sure that you will be communicating all these through your applicant tracking system, your careers website, and if you have some in-mails, right, that you are sharing to candidates, that is something that you should be able to communicate with them, right? So these are sample messagings that I've that I can share with you, and you can also and hopefully be inspired to write your own. So say for example, you want to have an auto reply in your applicant tracking system and making sure that you are capturing also what's happening in your organization and how you are supporting the community, right? So let me read this. Thank you for your interest in working at organization name. We know our colleagues, customers, communities, and the world need us now more than ever. During this time, we have taken a number of steps to ensure the health and safety of our colleagues and you. Here's what we are doing: asking our employees to stay at home if they are sick, supporting our recruiters with flexible hours, using remote dial-in to support working from home, offering virtual interviewing capabilities, hosting virtual career fair and hiring events, implementing online new hire training and onboarding, donating time, money, resources to organizations related to this crisis. Please note that the current application response times are now 7 to 10 business days. We appreciate your interest and patience as we are navigating through unprecedented times. We are all in this together. What if a candidate is following up on an application status, right? So thank you for reaching out. During this time, our team is currently working from home and our response times may be a little longer than usual. Please note you can always track your status of your application here. If there's anything else we can do to support your inquiry, email us at. From all of us here in your organization, please stay safe and healthy. And then company on hiring freeze. In light of world events, we are pausing our hiring for the foreseen future. During this time, we invite you to stay connected to our talent acquisition team if you have your careers portal or social media page. Thank you for your patience and understanding during these unprecedented times as we focus on taking care of our teams and their families. And then if you are offering a different style or different way of onboarding, like onboarding them virtually, here's a sample message. In light of recent events, our communities need us more than ever. We are still onboarding new employees though your experience may look and feel a little different. Our team is conducting onboarding virtually, working through how to onboard employees during this time. Your recruiter or hiring manager will be in touch with you in the next 5 to 7 business days with a specific update on your onboarding and start date. We appreciate your commitment and patience as we navigate through these unprecedented times together. So what am I saying here? It's that really you have to inform your candidates and really ensure that they know if there would be some delays in the recruitment process, what are the things that you are enabling for them to ensure that you will still progress with their application. We can now move on to commitment in hiring the role. So here, let's go back to the stats that I've shared a while back. These are the folks that are on the 28%. Those are very much employed in their current organization and might be thinking, is this the right time for me to move? Always in their head, they're thinking of the last in, first out, which is actually true. And how do you manage that? So you have to manage the perception by emphasizing the commitment of your organization to hire them. Would it take a longer time to close the requirement? Provide them the timelines, right? And how it has and how the role is impacting the organization as a whole, right? Especially if that position is impacting the new normal. So just additional information that was shared by CNBC recently. There had been new jobs that had been created by the pandemic, and you see top six of the positions that we are seeing now. I'm sure if you would be hiring any of these, it would be easier for you to explain how important and impactful these positions are. All right. Moving on to the third one, build attraction and interest as an employer. So this one is also very important because people are having perceptions with regards to your brand or to your organization, right? And how are you going to mitigate that? If you have some internal non-confidential materials, if you have press releases, if if you have TikToks or fund drives, or you have donated in some charities, please share that to the candidate and make sure that they understand how you are helping the community as well as your employees, right? So in a recent study by Link Humans, they've actually looked at, and they've used social listening tools. They've looked at the COVID-19 responses of employees and how it has defined employer brands, right? According to Career Arc, 87% of job seekers say they will less likely to apply for a job at a company after reading employee reviews of poorly conducted terminations or layoffs. And I think we have read this in several HR articles. The next question that candidates will ask us is, what have you done during the COVID-19 to your employees, right? And we would have to be honest and ready to answer those questions, right? So what Link Humans have actually put together is that they've looked at the best companies that have, they rise above the situation, and they've shared the employee responses, organic responses that have been posted in in social media, right? So let's look at Apple. And when they have made a decision to give their employees unlimited paid sick leaves for employees that are sick, or they could use that when family members would become ill. So their employees have said, never have I been treated so well by an employer. I feel incredibly lucky. Best company I've ever worked for. Another one is Unilever. Acted quickly and provided clear guidelines, safety standards, even before the world came into a lockdown. So their employees have mentioned in social media, proud to work for Unilever. Important set of actions to protect the lives and livelihood of employees. And the last one here that they've shared is actually Wells Fargo, right? So earlier in the year, they've already mentioned their plan of layoffs globally, but they've retracted that because of the COVID-19 situation, and also announced that they would be donating $175 million to employees, customers, and clients. So what did their employees say? I'm proud to be part of the organization trying to help mitigate the COVID-19 impact and support the customers during this challenging time. Thank you, Wells Fargo, for everything you are doing during this crisis. I'm proud to work for this company committed to its employees. So if you have these great stories that your organization has been doing, employee engagement activities, those sponsorships that you're doing fund drives that you're doing to help the community, share that to the candidate. But also make sure that you are not overselling it, right? You are not overselling the organization, because you'll never know what will happen in the next 2 or 3 months, right? So make sure that the decision is still with the candidate. And if these things will still not work, then probably what you can do is also look into inviting future colleagues of this candidate and ask them to have a conversation with this person and share with them the company's culture and strategy. All right, moving on to candidates' preference. So I'm sure there had been, or you have processes and protocols in your organizations that are sacred cow, right? Say you are not giving job offers in over the phone or virtually, right? So you have to consider options at this point. You have to share other opportunities for the candidate to learn more about your job offer, right? Double down on videos. And also make sure that you are not really pushing the candidate to come to your office if they are not comfortable in doing that, because there are government restrictions, travel advisories, and of course the personal situation of the candidate. So you have to be very considerate in that. There are some cases when candidate might not be open to accepting an offer if it's all purely virtual. You've sourced the candidate virtually, interviewed the candidate virtually, and job offers on, via virtual meetings. So what you can do is actually come up with a soft offer, and once everything is ready, and you can have the person come to your office, then you can invite the person to see the hard copy and review the contract, and have that conversation with him face to face. All right. We always hear BAU, but this time around, business is not as usual, because there are a lot of companies that have been impacted, and they need to bounce back on the losses that they've had in the past 2 months. So job offers would probably be one of the most difficult part that you would need to do as a recruiter. You have to understand what would be the long-term incentive plan, stocks, buyout package that would really have a significant value and impact to the candidate. It's very important that if you have offered the candidate pre-COVID, and then suddenly your compensation strategy has changed, make sure that you communicate that early, right? If the methodology of the bonuses have changed, if you need to give it in tranches, or if you need to delay that, make sure that the candidate's aware before they start. Right? Give them an opportunity to decide if this is something that would be impacting their personal obligations or their financial responsibilities. Also, if you're hiring an expat, also a consideration is on the relocation package and the housing allowances, right? Because there are dependencies on government guidelines and restrictions. Make sure that you have plan B. If you can onboard the candidate virtually, then that's the best deal for him. And lastly, we need to make sure that we are respecting the person, not because the person has been laid off that you will offer the person a low salary. Make sure that you are offering a salary that is based on the value and the worth of the job. All right, sixth item, nailing down a start date. All right, so that's also a difficult one, because there might probably be restrictions with your organization. You might have some technology privacy issues that you really cannot offer a virtual onboarding, right? So there would be tendencies that you need to delay the start date. Again, communicate this with the candidate, right? Because delaying the start date may mean that they would feel anxious. They might think that you are not committing to offering them the role, or they can succumb to a counter offer from their current organization, right? So again, communicate thoroughly, understand the candidate's situation. Will there be an impact if you change the start date on their personal or financial needs? If you need to have the person start or onboard in the office and get the laptops by themselves, then make sure that you understand the movement restrictions, provide your toolkit already. Do you need to secure them the COE or whatever that is needed so that they can go to your office? Can you provide a shuttle for them so that it will be easy for them to travel? And also making sure that they're safe as they travel to your office. Number 7, work arrangement. So one of the things that we need to look into here is that there are some companies that are really very particular with their mandatory pre-employment requirements. You cannot start without an NBI. But how can I get that? There's NBI is closed, right? So you need to have flexibility and offer options. Can a barangay clearance do the trick at this point? Or can you extend the submission of the NBI clearance? If pre-employment medical exam is a mandatory part of your pre-employment process? Can you look for clinics that are near the place of the residence of the candidate, right? So let's offer options and flexibility in this situation. Also, if you would need to ask the candidate to use their own resources, do they have laptops? Do they have mobile phones that are ready to be used in terms of their virtual onboarding, right? That is something that you need to also address during this time. Now that you have addressed all this, then you are ready for the new hire orientation and the new hire integration. But what you need to do is really also ensure that you are able to really provide the channels for the candidate to assimilate into the company. Say, for example, do they know how to access the documents? If you have SharePoints, make sure that they're part of the SharePoint. You have group messaging tools or video conferencing software, share it to them so that they'd be able to manage on their own. It's not like before that you can just go to your seatmate or to your peer and just ask how am I going to do this, or where can I find this? It's not the case right now. So you have to connect with them and make sure that there's a buddy that they can ping on a day-to-day basis if they have questions. Also, you have to understand that this is work-life integration at its finest. So you have to make sure that you understand that when you talk to them, there might be cases that the children are crying, dogs are barking, family members are watching TV, right? So you have to understand that, because not all households would have their own office setup in their houses, right? And then we've come to the last stage, growth in the organization. Now more than ever, you have to increase the check-ins. As hiring managers, you'd have to really make sure that you understand what are the personal situations, right? The issues that they're coming across, assimilating into the process or into the company, right? Do they need to go to the grocery because they are the tribute in the office, in the house, and they need to go and get some groceries for the family? Adjust the schedules and be flexible during this time. And in all those check-ins, that's the time that you would be injecting the department's culture and expectations, right? And you would have to also continue with the career conversations, mentorship, training for personal and professional development. Just to share with you, my organization, Shearwater, we are actually looking at virtual onboarding, but on top of that, we will have the virtual site tour, right? Because we have hired people virtually and they've not had the chance to come to the office and see how the base would look like, how our pantry would look like, and all the amenities in the office. So that's something that you can also look into and inject into the onboarding process. Oops, sorry. All right, so in a nutshell, so candidate care is critical and will change after this pandemic. And these are, to summarize all that I've mentioned, these are the 4 key items I wanted to share with our HR practitioners here in the call. I cannot emphasize anymore, but it's communicating is key to the effective candidate care during this pandemic. And you can do that through your applicant tracking system. If you can update your company website of the things that you are doing during this time. In your offer discussions, make sure that you share with them if there have been a change in the compensation strategy of your organization with performance bonuses, buyouts, sign-on bonus, etc. share what's changing in terms of the start date, if you need to move the start date at a later time, or if you are doing the onboarding in the office, share that as well. And of course, the new hire assimilation. As they join the organization, make sure that you have the check-ins and more frequent check-ins during this time. Second is adapt a technology or an alternate solution. Even at the GCQ, by Monday, I'm sure there would be, and we are still required with the social distancing, right? And that would really affect how we would interact with the candidate, unless you have really a big room that will give you enough space with a candidate and you can have that face-to-face conversation. But again, double down on video interviews and virtual meetings. If you have your pen and paper assessments, how can you translate that to something that is virtual and send them the link, right? Everyone's on their mobile, make sure that it's also mobile ready. And review your company protocols. If there are some alternate solutions to the mandatory requirements, please be flexible during this time. Third, low interest to changing jobs. So like I've mentioned, there would be a lot of those that will be thinking, is this the right time for me to change jobs? Because I'm not sure if I'll be secured. So security over uncertainty, and the last in, first out is something that is in their head. Also, a lot of those candidates would be the ones that have been laid off in the market, and how they are perceiving a stable organization is very much different this time. And then lastly, empathize, right? Listen to the candidate's situation. They may have been having some trouble in the family, like a loved one may have been sick due to the pandemic, right? Or may lost someone, right? So be considerate as well. Be aware of the situation. If there had been some lockdowns in their barangay or their city, how you will be able to connect with them. If you need to bring them their laptops or send them shuttles so that it will be easy for them to come to the office. And lastly, be kind, right? I think we cannot emphasize at this point, we have our vision, mission, values as an organization. It's all painted in the very nice places in the office, right? And this is the best time for us to translate that in the conversations that we will be having with our candidates. Make sure that your mission, vision, and values as an organization is embedded in how you are treating your candidates during this time. So that's all I have. Thank you. And I will be wrapping up. So may I turn this over to Neil or TJ or Michelle? Maybe we have.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you. Thank you for saying stay safe. Yes, we are really wanting to stay alive at this time, but we would like to thank you very much. Personally, I would like to thank you for the sample messages that you have shared with everyone, because I would have to agree with you that business is not as usual. That's very true at this time. So communication, what I'm getting really from what you have just presented is that communication is key at this time. Let's say throughout the recruitment process, up to the time that you are going to onboard a candidate or a new hire, that communication would be very important. Each step of the way, you would have to tell them of what's happening, tell them of certain changes probably throughout or in the course of let's say before they actually join in and just before they join in, which actually brings me to my question, Jen. What if, for example, during let's say I have already sent a job offer. I've already discussed the job offer to a particular candidate, and let's say there's a recent directive from the management wherein a change in, for example, let's say benefits or something, or compensation. If there were changes, let's say I've already made the offer and he already accepted it, the candidate, sorry, already accepted it, and then before the joining, there were some changes in the light of, sustaining the business, so that let's say the management would not want laying off people. So they had to somewhat change in terms of or revise a little about the policies, or let's say the compensation package. How would you now communicate that to that candidate who already accepted the offer, and could we change it?
Yeah. So first and foremost, when you have offered a candidate, and this might probably be a labor issue, right? Because that contract already states what you will be offering the candidate, and the candidate has signed, right? So we don't want to have some labor issues on top of the losses that the company would have at this point, right? So as much as possible, my suggestion is really for the company to honor the offer that has been given to the candidate, right? But if it's not, then it's really something that the labor team or your labor relations department would have to look into, and how we will be able to compensate the person, especially if the person has already resigned from the current organization, right? And just anticipating to join your organization, that's really, really bad. We don't want that negative publicity or branding for your organization. Is what I've mentioned a while back. Perception is really something that is being looked into by candidates.
Yes, I would have to agree with you. Yes, it has something to do with, you don't want labor issues eventually. And yes, we have to really honor what we have offered a particular candidate. Yes, and that also speaks of the culture probably, or we don't want to give a negative impression about the company, because you said it's very important at this time that we're able to communicate not just to the candidates, but to let's say future hires, of the kind of culture that we have, especially how we are thriving and how we are, let's say we are still operating as a company amidst the crisis. And my next question would be the importance of HR collaborating closely with your corporate communications team, because I could see the importance of doing that.
Yes,
Leveraging, let's say, social media, in terms of, you mentioned about, what we are doing, probably the CSR activities, the employee engagement programs. This would be the best time for us to highlight those, so that when a candidate or a future hire would look up, would see, let's say, or look, let's say, research about the company, they would see that, you have been doing very well and you've been taking good care of your employees amidst the crisis. That
yeah.
is what you're saying, right, Mrs.
Yes,
Jen?
yes, yes. And in fact, I've just shared some multinational companies. I know that there are a lot of local companies that have been doing that in the past few months, right? So this is the best time for you to share that. Even a simple TikTok wherein you're sharing your employee engagement activities, right? That's something already, because it's showing the potential candidate how engaged your employees, how happy they are in your current organization despite the pandemic.
Last question, Jen. How would you communicate, for example, during the process, now after the interview? Let's say a candidate would ask about a very sensitive issue, a very sensitive question rather, and it's about laying off people. For example, I'm the candidate and I would ask, um, have you laid off anybody in this company? As recruiting managers, shall we take offense, or how shall we communicate this professionally to this particular candidate? asking this very sensitive issue or
Yes.
question?
Yes. My personal opinion, you have to be honest, right? Even though you would not say it, eventually it would come out in the open. There would be a lot of people talking about it, and it would still be something that will come as negative if in case your candidate would hear about it and you lied about it, right? So the key important message that you have to share there is the reasoning behind that, right? For some of the companies, they have identified the critical workers, right? Which positions are really would have the most value and high impacting in terms of their revenue, and all those that might probably be a support function may be impacted by layoffs or redundancies, right? Because they would want to ensure that their revenue or their compensation or compensation budget would be kept at a minimum. So I think my personal opinion, you have to still be honest and make sure that they understand, or your candidates understand, the thought process, the reasoning behind that, why the organization has decided to lay off or let go of some of the employees that you have. And then, of course, back it up with why you want this person to join the organization. Because again, this person might be thinking, okay, you've laid off and then you're hiring me, right? So I'd go back to what I've mentioned a while ago. What is the impact of that position to the organization, right? How important is it for you to hire that person at this time during the pandemic? And how important is this role after pandemic, right? That's why you are investing on hiring the person.
That's very true. You would have to be able to explain clearly to the candidate why we are taking him in, how important his job is, while we have to let go. We had to let go of some employees in the company. And I would like to thank you for emphasizing that, we have to be honest. We have no option but to be honest to our candidates. Of course, you mentioned a while ago not to share too much information. Of course, we know that. But I think one key takeaway here is that if we could probably have, let's say, a ready script, a ready script for possible questions that candidates might ask of us.
Yes.
So if we already have like a ready answer or a templated answer, just like what you have just shared with us,
Yeah.
that would be much better. That anybody in HR, if anybody in HR would be asked, we would have the same
Yep.
responses to same or similar questions. All right. I
FAQs.
would want to,
Yeah.
yes, that's true. All right. Jen, I would like to give the floor to Michelle. I could see Michelle. Michelle is helping me out in terms of looking at the questions from our audience. Michelle, would you have any?
Hi, Sir Neil. Yeah, we have one question here from one of our audience. So the question is, most of the candidates who are applying are asking 40 to 50% increase from their previous or current pay. So for some reason, this took place when pandemic happened. How do we manage those situations?
Okay. Well, I think even pre-COVID, we see this situation, especially in the industry that I am in the healthcare BPO space, right? So, um, how you would have to manage this? This is a very interesting question. Again, I have an understanding what is the motivation for asking for a 40 to 50% increase, right? You have to understand the reason why this applicant wants to join your organization in the first place. Is it just purely money? Is it on the interest of being developed and trained, right? So you can actually answer the question And I don't know if you've had sales negotiations training as recruiters, but you have to really manage that conversation in such a way that you have to understand the motivators and how you can also translate that on what you can offer in the organization. Because at the end of the day, it's not just a compensation, right, that you will be offering. There are so many things that you can offer besides the money, the benefits, the training, the interactions that you will be having if you're part of a global organization, right? The ability to connect with global leaders in your organization, that's something already, right, that you are offering the candidate that the candidate may probably not have in his current organization, right? So my suggestion to the recruiters here, please do not answer questions straight away if it's purely compensation. Look for other things that you can sell in your organization. And that's probably something that you can ask your OD or training team to help you in a sales negotiations training for your recruiters.
Thank you for that, Miss Jen. And yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes candidates would be able to accept job offers to your company if the work environment is fun, the culture is very good. So in my experience, because currently we are actively looking for applicants, and we are continuously hiring despite this pandemic, and that's what we do. We tell them what kind of company we are in terms of the workforce, what are the activities that we are doing. And yeah, luckily we're close to filling in all our vacancies. So yeah, thank
And
you so much for that.
yeah, and that in itself is actually really good because you're showing the local community, the candidates, that your company is stable and can withstand the pandemic. Thank you. Any more questions from our
I believe there are more questions. And thank you very much, Mitch. TJ might want to read the other questions from our audience.
Yep, this one is from Ria. Right, so her question is, how do you manage candidate experience when you're just doing sourcing? There's no confirmed role yet, but since their skills are niche and recruiters are aware that the need may happen from time to time. So this is advanced preparation in hiring. So then before you answer, I'd like to share my thoughts because we've
yeah,
done this numerous times. Being in the headhunting industry, yes,
yeah,
I agree, Ria. There are a lot of niche skills out there. So when, like Ms. Jen mentioned already, it's properly managing expectations. When we do source for passive candidates, or when we tap passive candidates and the role is not really urgent, but will be probably doing hiring within the next couple of months, it's always best to manage expectations. We get on the phone. If we see a stellar, let's say front end, back end developer with DevOps skills, who can do, who can speak to stakeholders in the company. That's a unicorn. Once you see that, what we do is we speak to them on the phone. We properly manage expectations. We're very honest with the clients, with the candidates. So we would tell them, you know what, Mr. Candidate, your skills are very impressive. Although we don't have an open role yet, but we may have within the next couple of months. Are you open to explore? If yes, when is the best time to call you, or when is the best time to talk? So really, it's always best to properly manage expectations, even if you're just pooling for potential roles. Be very honest and be upfront with the candidates. So it's always about managing expectations. Your thoughts, Ms. Zed?
yeah. Thank you so much, TJ. You actually have just answered whatever is in my head. So with you.
So in
Yeah,
that
it's
case,
very
really, the
important.
communication is key, right?
Yep.
Okay. So TJ, would you want to read the other question?
Yep, there's another one from Odessa. I read query if we can include COVID tests as pre-employment requirements. What steps do you recommend if the result is positive? Tricky, right?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear that.
If we can we include COVID test as pre-employment requirements? And what are the steps? What are the steps do you recommend if the result is positive?
Okay, so that's very interesting. Let me answer it in two ways. One is just recently our company has also connected with our HMO directors, medical directors, right? And we've asked because we're thinking of having our employees go through the rapid testing. But the consultation that we've received is that it's not something that is required at this point for employees unless you're feeling or having the symptoms, and that's the time. But they are not really suggesting that we do that, right? So because sometimes there will be false results, and you might probably want to rethink if you want to include that in your recruitment process or pre-employment process. The second question, I'm sorry, TJ, what was that? I can't
What
remember.
are the steps if the result turns out to be positive?
Okay, the steps. Okay, so that's something that you have to also connect in with your facilities team, right? Or if you have your HR partners as well, you have to really create a protocol, not just for candidates, but also for your employees. Because by Monday, if the employees would be coming into work, I'm sure they would be checking their temperature, right? And if someone would have a high temperature, then you should have a protocol already. Will you be isolating them? Will you be bringing them to the hospital, right? Or what are these steps that you would have to do? So as HR practitioners, you have to think about that and connect with your probably facilities team or HR business partners.
Yep. Then maybe I can share as well, Odessa, what we're doing in our company. So I've actually created a policy about COVID. So we did a rapid testing for everyone. It's not 100% accurate, and you can further research about it. We have one employee who turned out positive negative. So just to give you an idea, if the result turns out to be positive negative, it might mean that the employee might have had the virus or might have had the flu. In short, the candidate got sick at some point, and then the test kit showed positive negative. So what we did is we had him undergo home quarantine, and then we closely monitored the symptoms. Luckily, nothing. He wasn't. He didn't have any fever or he wasn't coughing, and we've told him to report back to work Monday. But yeah, like what Ms. Jen said, it's not necessarily needed. It's not needed to be part of your recruitment process. But then again, depends on the prerogative of your management. It can be rapid test kits. I think are sold anywhere from 700 to 1,000. If you wanna make sure that you wanna keep a healthy workplace, you can potentially include it, but you have to discuss it with your management and then see what they think about it as well. And yep, always practice safe social distancing. The I think nowadays the thermal scanner is very it's very in demand. Like you need to have that. I mean, you need to check temperatures of employees as they go in, and then you really need to be extra careful during these times.
Mhm. It's your own personal responsibility, right?
Yep.
It's not the company who's taking care of, but your own personal responsibility.
Yes, correct, correct. We're like
And
we
then,
always say we're
Jen,
all.
yeah, sorry. And
No,
then do you
go ahead.
think, thank you, TJ. Then do you think it would create a good impression from a candidate? Let's say if the company would require somebody as part of the pre-employment requirement to have himself checked or tested for COVID-19, or would it be the otherwise? Let's say it would create a negative impression at that. Do you think it's more of a positive than
I
negative?
think it's on a case-to-case basis. That question is actually very much dependent on the candidate or the employee or the person itself, right? But you can always give options if you're not feeling well on your day one. If you're sick, then please don't push the candidate to come to work or be working even virtually, right? So again, we have to be very considerate in their situation and how they are feeling.
That's true. All right. Thank you. Michelle, would you want to read Sorry, another question from our audience.
Okay. So I'm not sure, TJ, if you read the question from Jolene already,
I
or
believe not yet.
not
Not
yet.
yet.
Okay. So one question from Jolene: if the new hire, if hired virtually and set up his work from home, would turn out to be a mismatch with company's vision, mission, and values, or turn out to be not fit for the job or position, how would you communicate? How would communication be if the candidate would have to be let go of if pandemic is still not over?
Okay. So remember in the presentation that I've had a while back in the I can't remember if it was the immersion side, but I think that was the ninth step that I've mentioned. In your check-ins, you have to really make sure that you are sharing with them the performance standards that you are expecting. Yes, you may be working virtually, but these are the expectations. If there are targets that have been set, these are the expectations. If they're not meeting that, then you'd have to still continue with the usual, right? The PIPs, if there will be some coaching sessions that needs to happen, make sure that you are following the due process, right? You have to partner with your HRBPs, right? To ensure that you are following the protocols. Again, this is not an exception. Even though we have the pandemic, you're still expected to do the job that is required of you. So if you are doing the one-on-one sessions and you are updating the candidate, or sorry, the new hire of their performance and how they are meeting the performance standards, then it would not be a surprise to them if in case you'd be sharing to them that unfortunately you did not meet the cut, right? So we still have the probationary period. So most of the companies would have the third month check-in and then the fifth month check-in. So make sure that if you're seeing in the first few months, or like say a month, that they're working on virtual and they're not meeting your performance standards, make sure that you share that, because if in the future this employee would be talking to some labor practitioners or would be suing you, then you need to also have those documentations ready that you have followed the protocol and the due process. Anything you want to add, TJ and Neil?
And I think, Jen, that this is where the importance of, let's say, if you don't have an HRBP in your company, this is where the role of the line managers is very much important. No, you really have to inform them of the importance of the check-ins, and reiterating the standards in terms of performance, because we're in a different world at this point in time. As you've said, business is not as usual. So most of us are working, on a flexible work arrangement or working from home. The more that we have, I think I understand that we have to orient also our line managers, if we don't have HRBPs, on how we would go about the evaluation of performance of of new hires or our candidates as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I 100% agree with Neil and Miss Jen. This happened just last month. So there were concerns raised with two of our employees. So I would say around 75% of our team are working from home. And then there's one manager who approached me asking if I can check on the productivity of her staffs. So I told her, well, yes, I am the HR guy, but it's not my responsibility to check on your on your team. It's your responsibility, and if there are concerns, let me know so I can help. So what happened was we have two employees whom they thought were not working because they weren't able to update the system. So we're running a NetSuite system in the office. So no notes, no updates, nothing. Right. So I told the manager, you know what, I can help you, but we need to do a normal process. You reach out to them first and check what happened. If you can't get through them, then reach out to me. I'll try and see what I can do. So what happened was the two employees they weren't just able to update the system because they're working from home, they're working from a mobile phone hotspot. So they both said that it's taking a lot of bandwidth. So yes, we need to really be, especially nowadays, like everyone is working from home. We need to make sure that the productivity is there. You know, we're lucky that our companies are allowing us to work from home, giving us full compensation and the likes. But it's also our sole responsibility to make sure that, every penny that they pay us, we give it back to them. So yes, check in on your teams at least maybe weekly, or I don't know, 2, 3 every week, or once or twice a week, to make sure that their performance or their KPIs are met.
All right, thank you very much, TJ. Are there any other questions from our audience, or would you have anything to ask Jen, Mitch, and TJ?
I actually have a personal question for Miss Jen.
Sure.
This
Go
is
ahead.
my this is our situation right now. So we already have a candidate who's already confirmed for onboarding. However, she doesn't have any equipment that she can use to start with the job. Um, but then of course I am thinking of how it would affect the productivity of the department because they already need the person. So if this kind of situation, how should I handle this kind of situation? Because when I talk to our TL, it's fine with the TL, but then again, I'm thinking of the productivity of that team because definitely since they are lack in manpower, the productivity suffers.
Sorry, Mitch. My internet is is not stable at this time. So let me just repeat, and hopefully I've understood the question. So this is about onboarding.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, your new hire doesn't have the tools
Mhm.
that he or she can use to perform the job, right? So what is it that you need to do? Is that correct?
Yes, Miss Jen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, isn't there any opportunity for your company to send the desktop to that person?
Because so far we don't have extra equipment in the office. Um, it's because of this pandemic. Because what we usually do is that when we onboard the staff, we will request for the equipment and then purchase for the equipment and then assign it to the new employee or new hire. But for now, we don't have any extra extra equipment that we could send to the new hire.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, that's one thing that I emphasized a while back. I'm not sure if you're able to hear me or see me. Unstable. I really don't know.
Now we're good. You're back,
We're good.
Jen.
We
Yes.
can see
Okay,
you. Yep.
Okay.
okay. Sorry about that. It rained here in Parañaque, so probably that's the reason why I'm having some internet issues. Anyway, yes. So that's actually one thing that I've shared in the presentation, Michelle or Mitch, a while ago. If there are some policies that you have in the past, that has to be flexible at this time. Like you've mentioned, you only request for the desktops only when you are onboarding. But this is a different situation. It's unprecedented. No one really knew about this way before, so we'd have to adapt and adjust, right? So is there a way for your organization to shift into being flexible at this time? Can you order for this new hire so that he'd be able to work virtually? The second option is it possible for you to secure shuttle for the candidate or for the new hire so that the new hire can work in your office? That's also another option if in case there is a struggle in terms of ordering tools for the new hire.
Thank you for that, Miss Jen. So it's more on creating a business case, the cost for the shuttle versus the productivity loss because the team is still lacking in 1 hour. So thank you so much for that.
Just a curious question, Jen. Um, for example, would this have to be part of the usual questions that you're going to ask, let's say, a candidate? Let's say, do you have internet connection at home? Do you have your own equipment to use if ever we're going to hire you? Would that be okay to ask at this point in time? We're
Yes.
just being practical.
Yes, yes, definitely. That's actually one of the spiels that we are using. And I'm sure some of the recruiters here are utilizing as well at an early stage and also in the sourcing process. Then you have to integrate that as part of the key questions that you will be asking. What is available? Do you have internet bandwidth? Do you use laptop, mobile, etc., etc.? So that's something that would actually be helpful for the hiring manager as well as they interview the candidate, so that they can think ahead and prepare if in case they want the candidate to join the organization.
And would you also ask about, let's say, their condition at home? For example, you mentioned a while ago, not everyone has, let's say, a dedicated workspace at home,
Yeah.
or let's say you're a fur parent for that matter. Let's say you have a lot of pets at home, you have your kids, you have your family, and would that be part of the key questions as well, just to make you understand of the condition of your candidate? You
Yes.
mentioned that a while ago.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if, for example, especially so if, let's say, the role would require a lot of meetings, a lot of, conversations, let's say, not just locally, but also, let's say, you have global clients or customers or stakeholders that they would have to speak with for, let's say, a lot of times in the office. And if, for example, they would say, I don't have dedicated workspace, I'm a fur parent, and I have kids, a lot of distractions at home. Would that be like, let's say, would that be a consideration not for you? Let's say, would that be a thing to be considered, let's say, whether to hire or not a
It
particular
shouldn't.
candidate?
It shouldn't. Hopefully, it shouldn't for the organizations that are people and all those participants that are here in this webinar. You have to be considerate in this certain time, making sure that the customers and the clients that will be into those calls would have to understand as well the situation. I'm sure. I mean, 203 countries globally have been affected by this, right? So I'm sure they would have their own personal distractions as well. Your clients and your customers may have their activities at home as well. So they should be able to understand the situation that we are in.
Another key question probably is about their being comfortable with the use of technology, because we let's say, if let's say you're talking to clients virtually, you talk to a lot of people virtually. So would that be part of the key questions that you'd have to ask a candidate, whether they're comfortable using technology in, as they do their work or perform their job?
Mhm.
Would
It
that be part of?
Although each and every company would have their own systems and tools, and even though I'm sure you're tech savvy, you'd still have to learn somehow how to navigate it, right? So it can form part of the onboarding process on how you will be utilizing the messaging tools of your organization, and how you would be like say creating meetings and how you're utilizing it. Do you have Zoom, or do you have any specific office team virtual software that you're utilizing?
That's a very good thing to consider now. I'm just thinking because my team handles the onboarding of candidates or new hires. So we would now consider virtual tour is actually very interesting. A virtual office tour is very interesting if you could also do that, so that they would get the feel of, this is where I'm working, supposedly, or virtually at least. And then the tools and the tools that they're going to use as a technology, how it would play part in the performance of their roles that we have now to include in our what we call the new employees orientation. That's very good.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Jen. All right.
Mhm.
I wish we have more time. You're only left with 9 minutes. Michelle and TJ, would you have other questions or coming from the audience? Would you like? I believe there are still questions from the audience. We could
Yes.
accommodate at least two.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have one question from our audience. So he or she's a headhunter. We've experienced some canceled offer with a couple of candidates because of the current case. Is it appropriate for a company to do that? How will you manage the candidate?
TJ, you wanna take that? Being a headhunter?
Actually, you know, during these times, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's more manageable because you have a solid case. There's a pandemic ongoing. People are losing jobs. Companies are half operational. Companies are losing revenue, etc. It's more valid. If your client pulls up the job offer and then the reason is financial concerns, or the company shut down operations, or they declare, they don't have resources, they don't have funds, it's valid, but you might still be liable to dole. And that's another story. It happened to us real life. I think around 8 years ago. I provided a job offer. This is a senior role, operations director. It's for Nestle actually. I can disclose them. It's for Nestle. We provided the person the offer. He accepted. He resigned. And then the client came back saying, we no longer need the job. The person like, wow, the feeling of everything just crumbled down on you after negotiating the job offer. Anyway, what happened to this case was I spoke with the candidate. I asked her out for coffee, and then I explained what happened, the full story. This is what happened. This is their side, and really they're moving and they're not gonna be able to use this role. So what Nestle did was they compensated the candidate. They agreed to pay 1 month full, 1 month full salary, even if they're not onboarding her. And then luckily, the company that she is working took her back. So that's in a way a perfect scenario because it went well. She didn't need to go to Dole. The client paid her for what happened, and then the current company took her back. But in this case, if your company pulls out the job offer and says they're not pushing through with the hire, if the reason is because of financial concerns or operational concerns, and there's literally no work to be done, it might be valid. But then again, on the other side, if Dole will look at it, that's another story. Your thoughts, Ms. Jen?
Yeah. Yes, correct. And the what Neste has done there is really a good thing because they made sure that their brand will not be affected by this one because I'm sure that person is already well known in the industry being an operations manager, right? So that would cause an issue in the future, and that person can actually sue Nestle because of that. So the question that I have, TJ, would be how long did Nestle share with you what was the lead time before you have given the offer until the time that they've said, no, we're retracting the offer? Because that's very critical.
Yep. But the candidate has a long notice period. The notice period is 60 days, which the
Hmm.
client said, yeah, we're willing to wait. She's the right candidate. And then 3 weeks into the notice
Yeah, so
period,
then, yeah.
yeah. So they gave us a heads up. I mean the time that they did that is for us it was reasonable. She was doing the notice. Luckily, she had a long yeah, long days notice because of her seniority. But yeah, after the job offer, 3 weeks down the line, the operations guy called. Actually, they called the owner, and then the owner related to me of my previous company. So yeah, 3 weeks into the notice period, we got a call from them. So it was it's very stressful, but it was properly managed.
Correct, correct. And that is actually the key piece there. Hopefully, you'll be able to save the or share the communication early on if the candidate is still in the notice period, so that the person can retract in the current organization. So hopefully that is the situation. If in any case the company feels that there might be potential issues in the new hires, that you might be doing a freeze hiring as early as possible, please look at the list of the candidates that you are to onboard and already share with them the current situation. So from a candidate perspective, you would have the decision if you would want to progress still, or you would want to just stay on with your current organization.
I couldn't agree more, Jen, with what you said. Michelle, I believe we could accommodate one last question from the audience. Would you like to read it, please, Michelle? The last one.
Yes. Okay. So, question from Odessa. So, in case an applicant is very fit for the job but has comorbiditis, is it correct? So, it's a high risk and the job does not qualify for a flexi work arrangement. How will you judge the situation?
That's very interesting. But
Right.
in each and every contract that a person is signing, your contract stipulates that it is based on the pre-employment medical exam or character reference checks, etc., which is forming part of the whole process, right? So if unfortunately the person would not be able to meet that, and it's part of the contract, and unfortunately you will not be able to onboard the candidate given that he or she failed your pre-employment medical exam.
That's a rare though. That's
Yeah.
very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, if I may share, I think it's this the judgment will be based on what will be the future effect if you're going to onboard that candidate. Will it create a future problem? Because we believe that the person is very fit, that's why we really want to hire him or her. But then in the future, that might create a sort of issue in terms of the operations, productions, behavior, attitude, etc. So I think that one consideration that we could look into.
Not only, yeah,
Mhm.
agree. It's
Michelle,
not only the here and now.
Mhm.
yeah, sorry,
Yes,
go
Jen.
ahead. No, so but Michelle, let's also not just focus on what the company would would actually be getting out of the candidate, but we also have to look at the candidate's perspective, right? Is he or she be safe and healthy, if he or she will be doing the job, right? At the end of the day, we'd have to make sure that we also ensure that the person is going to be well and be healthy as he or she is performing the job, right? I think that is very much important when we are having these types of candidates.
Yes, when we talk about candidate care, it's actually giving it paramount importance to their well-being as they
Yeah.
perform their role. I agree with you, Jen. It's now 7:30 on my watch. um, I wish we
Sorry.
have more time, but probably, well, thank you very much. We can't thank you enough, Jen, for sharing a lot to our HR community. We have learned a lot from you. And probably I could just now ask, or would you have any other words to say, final words probably, or anything else that you'd like to share with the community, Jen? Or
Well,
promote
I
probably?
I'm sorry.
Or promote probably anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our company, we're taking pride that we have not laid off or furloughed anyone. So that has been a decision of the organization, but we are having a slow down in terms of our hiring, and our sourcing and recruiting teams are actually pooling also candidates because we are hiring niche positions. So we continue to do this. We're having conversations, and first we ask the candidate how they are, right? So make sure that you are not doing this because of establishing rapport, but really asking them of their situation, their etc., which should be embedded in every conversation that you'll be having. So I do hope that everyone will stay well. I wish us all the best as we enter the new normal by Monday, right? And I hope that you would bring in all these learnings today, and as you meet candidates in the next coming days.
Yes, we are really preparing for that. Sorry, yeah. And thank you very much. We really learned a lot from tonight. And I'm sure Michelle here and TJ also have some key takeaways. So what are your key takeaways from tonight's session, Michelle or TJ?
Ladies first.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
For me, my insights, communication and transparency are very important. Okay, we have to communicate. They say that we need to over communicate if necessary,
Yes.
and be very transparent, be very honest as to the current situation of your company, not to hide anything to the applicants, just to get them and be onboarded. And of course, for me, treating the candidates as employees immediately, even though we are still on the recruitment process, that is also important. And the core values, from sending the invitation up to the actual interview phases, the core values is very important. That's part of all the questions and everything. So those are my insights in this session.
Great insights there, Michelle. How about you, TJ?
Yep. And I couldn't agree more with everyone. For me, it's really Miss Jen over that she really emphasized on it, communication. And then, I've done headhunting for quite some time to the point that I don't want to do it anymore. It's just too much recruitment. But here's the key thing: always treat your candidates the way you want to be treated. We are all candidates. If you look for another job, you will be a candidate. If you submit your CV through JobStreet, you will be a candidate. So treat your candidate the way you want to be treated, and always properly, honestly manage expectations.
That's very true, TJ. But for me, when we talk about candidate care, I would have that definition of communicate, and I like the conversation that you mentioned, Jen. No? It's really conversing or having conversations with a candidate and be considerate. At this time, we're really required to be a little more flexible, and that's us communicating to our candidates that we are really considerate as an organization. We want to take you in. We are not. We just have to do a little flexibility, have more a little flexibility this time. But what is really important is that we are able to communicate to them clearly what is happening in our organization, and then what they are to expect once they jump in, they join in the organization. So have conversations, communicate clearly, and be considerate to our candidates. So that for me, if I may sum it up in terms of defining candidate care. So again, thank you very much, Jen, for a wonderful evening, for a wonderful session. We have learned a lot.
Yep.
Thank you very much, TJ and Michelle, for joining me. It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you guys. And of course, thank you very much to jobstreet.com Philippines for allowing Philippines HR Group to collaborate with you in this meaningful endeavor. So thank you very much. It has been a wonderful uh, 2 sessions or 2 seasons rather for the virtual classes of PHRG. So On that note, I'd like to again thank everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm sure we're all preparing for June 1 for the GCQ. So we're all in this together. Just take care of each other, and that's it. So God bless everyone. Thank you very much again. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining.
Bye.
Bye.